Well, in terms of the game itself, I just wanted to look. Let's just right off the bat, Adam, what went wrong for Dallas? It's a very open question, but I think anyone who's a Cowboys fan watching this, or anyone who enjoys the fact that they were dismantled, like it just seemed to be. There was never a moment where they got back into this game. So what went wrong for them?
They gave up too many points.
Nailed it.
That was the fundamental issue that went wrong for them. I think we can safely say they struggled against the run, can't we? I think Alvin Kamara had a pretty good day. Should we? I know that Fred is still feeling the pain of that from our Dynasty League. That Alvin Kamara had a pretty good day, but yeah, I mean I think they just ended up in a bit of a spot where the run they couldn't stop the run. It then opened up Derek Carr to be able to just bomb the ball downfield to Shaheed. And before they knew it, they were like 21 points behind. And it was all a bit like, what do we do now? And 35-3, was that right? At half time, something like that. So you're not coming back from that, are you? Let's face it. No. I mean, there's very few.
35-16.
35-16, sorry. Yeah. I mean, even that, it's like, it's going to be a really tough, you basically have to play perfect football in order to be able to come back from that. And I think it was just too much for them in the end. But yeah, I just think the Saints, we've kind of we haven't really said a lot about their offense. We didn't really think it was going to be much other than just Kamara, and that was it. And but Derek Carr is looking like he's suddenly decided to become a quarterback again.
I apologise to him, don't I? After my preseason,
I think so. Yeah. You were very horrible to him, and you should be ashamed of yourself. You've obviously the insults have clearly got in his head, and you've motivated him.
Exactly. Random English guys wound him up, and he's playing great football now.
Because obviously he listens all the time.
You can be particularly irritating as well. To be fair.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. I just thought that offense seems to be on fire at the moment.
Well, Fred, as much as irritating as I am, and admittedly I agree with that, Adam does agree. Adam always is. A lot of times he wouldn't like to admit this, but the same train of thought as me. Because the reason I asked him such an open question was hoping he would mention Alvin Kamara and Derek Carr. The Saints, I had a look. So they've run play action on 45% of their dropbacks, according to Next Gen Stats. The most in the league. I know it's only 2 weeks, but last year that number was at 13% across the whole season. It's clear that obviously Clint Kubiak, he's coming from the 49ers. He was their passing game coordinator. They've molded a lot of this offense clearly in terms of just putting the ball in Alvin Kamara's hands. How impressed were you with him and his stat line? Because, to have 3 touchdowns, 115 yards, he just tore them apart.
It's an impressive stat line, but I would say that there is a trend across the league where the smoke and mirror offenses are attributed to quarterbacks that maybe teams don't entirely trust on all occasions. Miami do it. There's sort of... I get why teams do it, but teams do it because they maybe don't have a quarterback who's in that top 5, top 10 sort of bracket that can be the real difference maker. So they have to get creative to be able to sort of get their offensive rolling at times. But yeah, you're right. 91 points in 2 games, that makes them the number 1 offense lead, and they're leading with 5 receiving touchdowns as well and 6 rushing touchdowns. And we've just spoke so positively about them in the last 2 weeks, and they've deserved that. And Adam's completely right. It wasn't the offense that was mentioned at all. Whenever we've been speaking anyway about the Saints at the start of the season, we sort of spoke about them on the Tuesday show last week as well. And they just seem to be clicking on all cylinders. If they can keep that up, this team's got a really strong chance of going far in the NFC Championship, in the NFC side of it, and in that side of the bracket in the playoffs potentially. It's if they keep it up. I mean, Kamara has really come back into his own. I don't think anyone really ever saw him. Anyone really saw him dipping off when he did start his career, but he certainly did dip off because of injuries and that sort of thing as well. And obviously there was a turbulent time at their quarterback position there. They had their injuries with their offensive unit as well and their offensive line. They had, stud wide Michael Thomas. Remember that year that he was just incredible? Like he just disappeared off face of the earth. And they've never really been able to get that identity back. And now they have that identity back. And like, I played a football game a couple of months ago, and we weren't that good a team, but in the first 5 minutes, this team just scored like 6 goals against us out of nowhere. It was like everything they touched went into the back of the net. And this was the exact same with the Saints, the Cowboys. It was like the Cowboys blinked and suddenly like, how have we put up all these touchdowns this quickly? And it was just they could not compose themselves to rally to come back. At no point in that game could you go, I can see the Cowboys come back from this. I don't think anyone thought that or felt that. Like, but the Cowboys historically do this. They historically have a great opening game and then have an all right second game and then a bad third game or a bad second game and all right third game. They remember that real tie game they had a couple of years ago where it was the onside kick and they recovered the onside kick and won the game. Like, I can't remember. I don't know why the Cardinals screamed to my brain about that game, but I'm not sure if it was. So they're just rolling. I mean, the Cowboys could not deal with it. They could not deal with it. They've allowed 5 rushing touchdowns, which leads the league. Obviously, 4 of them were against Kamara. And they could not run the ball. They were held to 68 yards, which is now 23rd in the league with a total of 170 rushing yards. But they are 9th in throwing yards with 448. But we know this stat already. Dak doesn't win games with his arm. It is a run. It's a team that does way better with the run. Yeah. And Dak's fantastic at throwing the ball. He is. And having CeeDee Lamb is a wonder. And we sort of said between us in the offseason that link between Dak and CD could be the making of their offense, but it's sort of showing again that, you know, maybe they need to be a bit more run focused and have that CD as the cherry on top. And yeah, it is a head scratcher for the Cowboys now. They've definitely been sent back to the drawing board, haven't they?
Adam,
they can't be behind, can they? That's the problem. If they end up falling behind, they're in trouble because it is literally throw it to Lamb and what else do you do, especially when Ferguson's out? You know, that's
against you guys in the playoffs. I think there was a drop
exactly
early in the game, and as soon as that happened and you guys got ahead, like you said, they just couldn't keep up.
Yeah, and they have to establish the run, and if they don't, they're in trouble.
But what do they do, Adam, long term? Because clearly they've paid Dak and they've paid CeeDee Lamb, and look, we know what Jerry Jones is like. I think if you want to be, this is not a dig on, well, it is on Mike McCarthy, but I don't think he's one of the coaches renowned for building through drafts. He's not bad, but he's not the best. You know, clearly, if they want to be competitive long term, they're going to need a coach who is going to come in and do that because they've spent so much money on cap space now on those 2 offensive guys we mentioned, Micah Parsons as well, obviously in need of big contract. There's guys there. So if they have this, to me, feels like a result at the end of the season, regardless of what happens, unless they win a Super Bowl. Jerry Jones, the sort of guy, goes, "Oh, I remember opening game at AT&T where we got blown out by the Saints. See you later." Do you think this holds some weight? Like, it's not a good look, is it? Even though it's only week 2.
Well, no, it's not a great look at all. I mean, it kind of it goes to show that if this is what can happen to your team, if it just slowly, if it's, you know, very quickly, kind of sort of like the other team can take that lead, then, you know, you're basically relying on the fact that you're going to be able to take the lead every single time in every single game, and that's just not going to happen, as we saw on Sunday. So, yeah, I mean, that's really difficult. I think in the long term, I would be surprised if McCarthy was there next year. I think he will probably go. I think they're going to have to bring in a new coach and someone maybe with a slightly different mindset and a different way of playing. I mean, everyone else seems to be getting someone from the McVay tree, so why not get someone from there? That seems to be the new thing to do. So, yeah, I think that's what you're looking at with them. But it's going to be difficult. Everyone said this, didn't they? They needed a running back. They needed someone who, you know, was
in the draft. Did they? It was silly.
Yeah, and it didn't even necessarily have to be in the draft. It could have been through free agency. There were running backs available. You know, look at your Chargers and J.K. Dobbins. So, you know, I mean, they got someone there on the cheap. So why couldn't they have done that? You know, that could have worked for them. I think it's just that they've kind of overlooked that part a little bit, and And I think it was very much Dak and CD got us to the playoffs last year. We'll do exactly the same again. And you're seeing that maybe certain games it's not going to happen.
So sorry to interrupt, but isn't this just a huge advertisement for every team in the league to be like, to beat the Dallas Cowboys, you got to go in and smack them in the mouth early, and rock them early. And if you rock them early, if you pressure them early, you take your points early, and you get them on the back foot, home or away as well, they are going to struggle to come back against you. And a lot of teams have got a way better offense than the New Orleans Saints. Okay, statistically not, but names on a sheet of paper. They have got some better playmakers. People like the 49ers must be looking at it. I know they lost over the weekend, but they must be looking at this and thinking, well, the Cowboys are beatable. The Eagles are a smash mouth team in the same division. They're going to go and hit them in the mouth and rock them early and really get at them. That's the way to beat this Cowboys team now, clearly.
No, you hit the nail on the head. And I think, as good as CeeDee Lamb is, even Tom Brady in the commentary was saying about, Jalen Tolbert had some big catches in the end, but if you play press coverage against him and take Lamb away, there's not really much else, is there, on this offense, really? Or at least not after 2 weeks. But it was a good win for the Saints. Obviously, we saw Baker Mayfield, had to mention his name just for Fred. They beat the Lions on the road 2016. And it's weird that after 2 weeks, we're looking at Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, Bucks and Saints as two of the most informed teams in the league. But yeah, we'll move on.